Hey everybody, what is going on? So back in the Sales Legacy sales script, and so now we're going to dive into how you can close the deal on the first call. Again, this works better for deals that are more transactional, non-complex, and like for example, consulting or coaching or speaking engagement, something like that. So let's go ahead and dive into the section where we're going to do this. Closing the deal, first call, part 1. Let's go ahead and dive in. So here's some sales legacy tips. Closing the deal in the first sales meeting typically works better for transactional deals, right? So you don't want to expect to close the deal on the first call when you're working with larger organizations, because you got to know that they got a lot of approval processes. So this only works in transactional deals. Now the talk track, right? First you want to do is you want to summarize everything you talked about so far, and you want to get the prospect to verbally say they are experiencing some kind of problem, right? So you say, all right, Tim, so right now you're making about $20,000 in profit per month. Great. But you believe you can get to that $50,000 if you could figure out Facebook advertising. I was curious to know if there was anything stopping you from doing this on your own. And now what you want to do is you want to listen to their pains, their problems, and get ready to position yourself as the solution. This is typically where they're going to say like they don't want to figure it out on their own. They don't want to do them by themselves. They need some kind of help, and that's when your product, service, solution, whatever it is, comes into play. Now let's go ahead and get into the second part. And all right, closing the deal, part 2. Okay, so essentially how it's going to work is you want to push the prospect away a little bit, and what they're going to do is they're going to start closing themselves. So an example of this is once the prospect tells you their pains and they admit it and all these things, and you say, all right, well, making $20,000 per year is actually pretty good. Why do you need to get to 50,000? Like, why don't you just stay where you are? Right? You're pushing them away, and they're going to come back to you. A prospect says, sure, it's a decent amount, and they'll give you a reason why they need to make more money. I want to make more money because I want to buy a house and blah, blah, blah. My kids need to go to school or whatever, right? Goes on a rant of why they need to make more money, save more time, etc. Now you say, all right, well, that makes sense. And could you remind me again when you want to take care of this? And they're going to say, after you talk about all these things, they're going to realize that they want that money now, right? Everybody wants to succeed now. And the prospect's going to say, I mean, now is a good time. Like, why don't we just do it right now? You say, all right, well, okay, so to make sure I got everything, you're making about $20,000 in profit a month, and you want to get to that $50,000 level, and you want to get there as soon as possible. I get that. But I got to know, how committed are you to actually reaching this goal, right? Asking for their commitment is the key, because when someone says they are committed, they are going to close themselves. Now you want to listen to their pains, their problems, and get ready to position yourself as a solution. So the prospect says, oh, I'm very committed because I need to XYZ. They give a reason for why they want to get to $50,000 per year, or whatever their main objective is. Now we're going to go into the next part, right? We're almost there. We're almost going to close them. And let's go ahead and go into closing the deal part 3. Now, you're going to get permission to pitch your product or service, and you want to make sure you keep it less than 3 minutes like we talked about. Okay, Tim, I might be able to help you with that. Are you interested in hearing what I do, right? Earning the right to pitch. Then the prospect says, yeah, please tell me. Then you go in your one-sentence pitch like, the example is great. Now what we do is we help high-growth startups reach new audiences all around the world using Facebook advertising, whatever it is, right? XYZ, ideal customer, value, product, service. Now expand with your persuasion formula and just tell them, exactly position yourself on how you are the solution to all the problems that you talked about during the pain pyramid. This is where you talk about the problems that most people face, the solution and how you solve the problem, and why it's important for them to choose you now, and why you're different from everybody else. Now we're going to move on to the next part, which is where we're going to close. So what's going to happen is that typically prospects, they're going to like what they hear because you're the solution to their problems. And then now they are going to ask about pricing. And if they don't, what you want to do is you want to nudge them by asking them a transition question. So then you want to, after you pitch your product or service, then you say, with that said, what would you like me to do now? Then the prospect is pretty much going to naturally say, okay, well, how do I work with you? Like, how do we get started? What's your price, right? Then you say, okay, well, now we usually charge about $13,000, and I'm just making this number up. You charge whatever you charge. But we like to work with good clients who are decisive and they know what they're doing. So we have a special pricing where we'll lower the price by $5,000, bringing the total to $8,000 if you can make the decision on this call. And then you just want to stop, and you want to pause, and you want to wait for the prospect to respond. You do not want to say anything at this point, and just wait, right? Prospect is going to give in to that, and he says, okay, well, that sounds fair. How do we get started? And then you say, great. If you like, we can go ahead and get started right now. And the prospect says, sure, but what do we do? And you say, okay, well, if it's okay with you, we can do credit card over the phone. Is that going to be Visa or MasterCard? And then the prospect will say, okay, well, it's Visa. And they'll give you their credit card number, and then you process it on whatever processor you use to do transaction or PayPal or whatever it is, right? I recommend credit card because everybody has a credit card. And that's pretty much it. That's how you close somebody on the first call. You basically say you have a certain price and you give them an incentive to close the deal now by saying, hey, you're going to get a major discount if we just close the deal right now, because I like to work with people who know what they're doing. And assuming that your stuff is actually good and you're going to deliver on your promises, then this is going to be a great deal for the prospect. They're going to think about it and they're going to say, okay, let's do it, man. Help me get to that 50K level, or help me do XYZ. And then from there, you're going to close the deal and it's done. And then from there, once you get the money, send over all the details that you need to send over, and that is it. So that's pretty much how you are going to close the deal on your first call. Again, adjust it to your own style. You change the numbers to fit your product or service. But again, just follow the blueprint or format that I'm giving you, because it does work. So with that said, that's everything we got to cover when it comes to closing the deal, or really getting the prospect to close themselves on the first call.